Chapter 20. Jacob bristled at the angry edge to my voice and jumped off the floor. "Let's do this," he said in an aggressive tone. "About time," Emmett thought, pushing angrily towards him, Jasper right next to him.
"No,"
Bella gasped, and she stepped toward me, her hand grasping my arm. Rosalie moved with her, rigid with fury about the proximity of the angry werewolf.
"Control this, Edward,"
Alice thought. I tried to center myself. I would not let Jacob's theatrics upset Bella. She was already gasping slightly, and I could feel her hand tremble against my arm. I needed to calm her down. I turned and looked at her worried eyes. "I just need to talk to him, Bella," I murmured gently. Her gaze was so troubled. I reached out and stroked my hand once down her cheek, velvet warmth sparking against my cold skin. I felt an overwhelming desire to kiss her, but Jacob's black fury at my touch on her face froze me, holding me back. "After all he's done to her," Jacob seethed, "he's still allowed to touch her." I swallowed back the biting anger and remorse brought on by those words, keeping my voice soft. "Don't strain yourself. Please rest. We'll both be back in just a few minutes." She held my eyes for a moment, and then her expression softened. She nodded and then slumped slightly, exhaustion on her face. Rosalie gripped her arm and helped her back onto the couch. Bella looked pointedly at Jacob.
"Behave,"
she said,
"and then come back."
"Are you sure about this man?" thought Emmett. He and Jasper's eyes were intent on my face. I nodded imperceptibly and turned and headed outside. Jacob followed. "We're ready if there's any trouble, Edward," Jasper thought. "Be careful." As we walked, Jacob was considering my unprotected back. I sighed. In all his fantasies about attacking me, and I had heard many of them in his mind since we met, he had never truly comprehended that he could kill me, or even hurt me really. He continually underestimated the advantage my gift gave me, particularly against his kind of attack. No, he could not kill me, not unless I wanted him to. "I'm not ready for you to kill me yet, Jacob Black," I whispered. "You'll have to have a little patience."
"Edward,"
Alice said warningly in my head. She had heard that. "Patience isn't my speciality," Jacob growled. I was headed some ways down the driveway, not far enough that we couldn't be heard from the house. I didn't want to go that far from Bella, but enough of a distance that our words would be muffled and hard to follow. It was the best I could do as far as a private conversation, but I would still be able to hear my family's thoughts and watch Bella through their eyes. As we walked down the drive, my anger at Jacob's earlier thoughts began to ebb away, draining out of me. I always knew he would kill her. Why had I gotten mad at him? Why had his words stung, when he was merely thinking the simple truth I had been saying for days? And then I realized why his words had struck me so hard, because it was judgment, finally. And God, I deserved his judgment. Despite my constant self-hate, I had spent the last week cocooned in my family's love, their minds filled with many things, compassion, fear, sorrow, love, but never blame. I had escaped up to this point the true measure of my actions, but Jacob was not afraid to lay blame where it belonged. His would be the harshest judgment, all the more terrible because of the way he loved Bella, for like me, she was his whole world. He would do anything to see her happy, to give her what she wanted, to keep her safe. A precious, fragile flower, gifted undeservingly to my care, and I had allowed her to be crushed by darkness, and he made clear that my betrayal of the gift of her love was nothing more than the expected consequence of tainting her with my monstrous existence. The weight of this judgment hit me hard, and all the truth that went with it. Agony rose up and gripped me now, and I didn't have to hide it from Bella here, and I couldn't hide it from Jacob. I turned to face him. His eyes bore down on me, a mixture of hate, anger, and despair, and even a flash of shock and pity. "No," I thought, "don't pity me." I saw my reflection in his mind, and I hated it. My fingers reached up, pressing against my skin, and I wanted to tear the expression from my face, to rip away the last vestiges of humanity it gave me, as if I could strip myself down and bear clean the monster I really was. My mouth opened. "I'm sorry," I wanted to scream. I didn't mean for this to happen. But Jacob didn't want my apologies. I'm sorry, Bella, I thought. My God, I hadn't even told Bella I was sorry for destroying her life. Jacob watched my expression and knew. It's killing her, right? He choked out. She's dying? His face paled and twisted, agony searing through his mind. God help me, but yes, I thought. I couldn't get the words out. Jacob tried to process the horror, to flesh his pain from mine, for they were different in his mind, because I had had more time to live with it, because he had already lost her, because she wasn't his to lose, and because it isn't my fault, he thought. My fault, I moaned, and the weight of the words dragged me to the ground. Yes, pain and sickness and death, all my fault. I had taken the girl we both loved, beautiful, pure, and good, and poisoned her. I pressed my face against the dirt, into the cold earth, where by all that was natural and right my body should have been buried these long years past, dead and decayed. Then Bella would have been safe from me, for my very existence provoked death, whether it be by my hand, or the hand of that which I had wrought. Either way, I was guilty. Yes, I gasped into the ground. Yes, it's killing her. Jacob shuffled his feet, tense and irritated. He wanted anger from me, hate, violence, not the helpless shell he saw before him. So why hasn't Carlyle done anything? He snapped. He's a doctor, right? Get it out of her. I looked up at him in blank astonishment. Did he think I wouldn't have tried that? She won't let us, I whispered. Jeez, thought Jacob. Of course. Die for the monster's spawn. It's so Bella. You know her so well, I said softly. How quickly you see. I didn't see. Not in time. She wouldn't talk to me on the way home. Not really. I thought she was frightened. That would be natural. I thought she was angry with me for putting her through this, for endangering her life, again. I never imagined what she was really thinking, what she was resolving. Not until my family met us at the airport, and she ran into Rosalie's arms. Rosalie's. And then I heard what Rosalie was thinking. I paused, racked by the memories. Yet you understand after 1 second. How often I had cursed my inability to read Bella's mind, thinking it kept me from fully understanding her. It was a poor excuse. Jacob, with no such gift, seemed to understand Bella as if he could read her every thought. Just back up a second. She won't let you? He said, a sarcastic edge to his voice. Did you ever notice that she's exactly as strong as a normal 110-pound girl? How stupid are you, Vamps? Hold her down and knock her out with drugs. I wanted to, I whispered. I remembered that day we had come home, the near confrontation in the dining room. Carlyle would have. What, too noble? No, I almost laughed out loud. Noble was not the word for my behavior. Not noble. Her bodyguard complicated things. Does the beauty queen want Bella to die so bad? Maybe, I muttered. Rosalie doesn't look at it quite that way. So take the blonde out first. Your kind can be put back together, right? Turn her into a jigsaw and take care of Bella. I sighed. Emmett and Esme are backing her up. Emmett would never let us, and Carlyle won't help me with Esme against it. You should have left her with me, Jacob said. It was a simple statement of fact, and the truth of it was heavy and appalling. I was suddenly reminded of the words in the note I had sent to Jacob with the wedding invitation. I promise I will take care of her, I had written, and I had meant those words, meant them with every fiber of my being. It had been important to me that Jacob understand, that he believe, that I could love and protect Bella as well as he could, maybe even better, I had thought, and instead I had destroyed her. Yes, I replied. Maybe he should have thought about all of this before he knocked her up with a life-sucking monster, Jacob sneered in his head. Yes. I looked up and met his eyes. Yes, he was right again. We didn't know. I whispered my hollow excuse, owing him some sort of explanation. I never dreamed. There has never been anything like Bella and I before. How could we know that a human was able to conceive a child with one of us? Jacob interrupted me. When the human should get ripped to shreds in the process? Yes, I said. They're out there, the sadistic ones, the incubus, the succubus. I shook my head, remembering with disgust some of the visions I had seen in Tanya and Kate's minds. I didn't realize they had a special name for what you are. His words lashed out at me, harsh judgment again. I suddenly realized that while I looked down on Tanya and Kate, what I had done was so much worse. This was not an unknown, unnamed stranger. I had done this to someone I loved. I looked into Jacob's face, knowing he could never comprehend my grief. He was blessed that he couldn't. Even you, Jacob Black, cannot hate me as much as I hate myself. Wrong, he thought, the urge to murder coursing through him. And maybe he was right. I knew what I had done. If Jacob had ever hurt Bella like I had, if he had ever put her through this kind of physical agony, sentenced her to death, I was chilled by the certain realization of what the extent of my revenge would have been. Well, Jacob would get his revenge, if it came to it. But not yet, not when we still might save her. Killing me now doesn't save her, I said quietly. So what does? He asked. I started to feel that small stir of hope that I thought was lost. Jacob was right here in front of me, just like I wanted. Ask him for help, I thought. That's what you wanted. Jacob, you have to do something for me, I said suddenly. The hell I do, parasite, he sneered. No, not for me. Jacob would never do anything for me. For her, I tried. Jacob's teeth snapped together. I did everything I could to keep her away from you, he growled. Every single thing. It's too late. You know her, Jacob. You connect with her on a level I don't even understand. You are a part of her, and she is part of you. She won't listen to me because she thinks I'm underestimating her. She thinks she's strong enough for this. I thought of something tearing its way out of her body, and the words caught in my throat. She might listen to you. Why would she? Why? I wasn't really sure. It was a feeling, an instinct that he could help. Perhaps it was the way Bella related to Jacob, the bond forged between them. It was the way he knew her, all the things he shared with her that I did not. And then I saw it. Of course. I wasn't sure if the idea had been there the whole time, and my mind just hadn't been able to embrace it, or if it had just come to me now, in a moment of wild, desperate insanity. But now it seemed so obvious, simple. The difference, the gulf between Jacob and I, encompassed many things, but the greatest difference of all was his humanity, for his heart still beat, blood ran through his veins, and his body held the power to bring a child to life. The realization overpowered me, in a rush of uncertain excitement, fear, and horror, and I felt the world spin out of control for a moment. I jumped to my feet. Jacob was watching my wild expression. Can vampires lose their minds? Could they? Maybe, I mused. I don't know. It feels like it. I spent so much time hiding how I felt these days, I didn't even know who I was anymore. I could hardly recognize the person I saw in Jacob's thoughts. I have to try to hide this in front of her, because the stress makes her more ill. For a moment, I concentrated only on Bella, looking at her through Esme's eyes. She looked tense and worried and sick. But that doesn't matter now. She has to listen to you. I can't tell her anything you haven't. What do you want me to do? Tell her she's stupid? She probably already knows that. Tell her she's gonna die? I bet she knows that too. I froze momentarily. Yes, I thought. She does know that. She's known it all along. I tried to shake this off. You can offer her what she wants. Jacob regarded me skeptically, but my mind came sharply into focus as the idea clarified and became solid. She was fundamentally changed, she had told me. She wanted a baby now, and I could never, ever give her that baby, so she had to choose a different path. I don't care about anything but keeping her alive, I said. If it's a child she wants, she can have it. She can have 6 babies, anything she wants. I had to rip the actual words from my throat. She can have puppies, if that's what it takes. I held his eyes. Incredulity spread slowly over his face, and his mind rattled with mocking doubt. But not this way, I hissed. Not this thing that's sucking the life from her while I stand there helpless, watching her sicken and waste away, seeing it hurting her. My breath caught with a sudden vision of Bella's purple stomach. Oh God, this had to work. You have to make her see reason, Jacob. She won't listen to me anymore. Rosalie's always there, feeding her insanity, encouraging her, protecting her. No, protecting it. Bella's life means nothing to her. Jacob made a choked noise. What is he saying? Jacob thought. Is he giving her up? Or does he think she won't mind being shared? I felt as though my chest had been cleaved open. Give her up? Shared? The concepts felt foreign and hideous in my mind, but the time for comfortable choices had long since passed. Whatever keeps her alive, I said firmly. That's the craziest thing you've said yet. She loves you, I said, the words bitter on my tongue. Not enough. Jacob's voice was soft, rough. She's ready to die to have a child. Maybe she'd accept something less extreme. Don't you know her at all? This remark grated against my already gaping wounds. I didn't, and that's how we had gotten to this place to begin with. Bella will hate this idea, a small part of my mind screamed. You know her well enough to realize that. I know. It's going to take a lot of convincing. That's why I need you. You know how she thinks. Make her see reason. Jacob paused for a moment, and as he considered the idea, the images from his mind bore through me painfully. He had always had the gift for realism and fantasy. I saw Bella in his arms, tangled with his body.
Jacob,
she sighed, her eyes burning with love and passion. I swallowed hard, maintaining my composure, trying to shake off the memories of the grueling night in the tent, when his long night of fantasies had seemed to almost morph into reality, as he lay in the sleeping bag with Bella, his arms around her. And then new images, and I froze in icy horror. Images of Bella, glowing, pregnant, his child growing inside her, Jacob's child. These images began to shred at the last pieces of my sanity. I felt a sudden rush of hate and jealousy, that he was able to imagine with such confidence that if she wanted, he could actually give her that gift, create another life with her, together. He could provide her happiness and health. I could only stand on the outside of such a scene, with the knowledge that I had no such gift to bring her. I heard Jasper's mind, suddenly concerned with my emotional state. I was surprised that he could sense me so acutely from this distance. He spoke to Carlyle, telling him I was very upset. "Edward?" worried Carlyle. "Are you okay? We're here waiting if you need us." My family was frustrated and confused, unable to make out our conversation, muffled by the distance, as I had hoped. Emmett was prowling around the front door like a caged animal. "Make Bella see sense?" Jacob asked finally. "What universe do you live in?" I shrugged to answer him. "At least try," I choked out. "No," he thought, shaking his head. He thought I was crazy. "I've been thinking of nothing but ways to save her since I realized what she was planning to do, what she would die to do." I explained how I wanted to talk to him, but didn't know how to reach him. "I would have come to find you soon, if you hadn't come today, but it's hard to leave her, even for a few minutes. Her condition, it changes so fast. The thing is growing, swiftly. I can't be away from her now." "What is it?" Jacob asked suddenly. "None of us have any idea, but it is stronger than she is, already." And Jacob could see it now, the monster, breaking Bella from the inside out. I wished I could crush the image, mirrored in my own mind, obliterate its existence. "Help me stop it," I whispered, pleading. "Help me stop this from happening." "How? By offering my stud services?" I let this crude term wash through me without reaction. "You're really sick. She'll never listen." "Try. There's nothing to lose now. How will it hurt?" "It would hurt me," he thought. "Haven't I taken enough rejection from Bella without this?" Come on, Jacob. Couldn't he understand what this would cost me? A little pain to save her. Is that such a high cost? I pressed. "But it won't work," he insisted. "Maybe not. Maybe it will confuse her, though. Maybe she'll falter in her resolve. One moment of doubt is all I need. Show her that she can have a baby, a healthy human child, and still live." "And then you pull the rug out from under her?" "Just kidding, Bella," he snapped. I felt cold, piercing pain at this statement, because I wasn't truly sure, even given the miracle that Bella might change her mind and allow Carlyle to remove the creature, that she was healthy enough to survive human. And when she woke up after the endless pain, cold and frozen, childless forever, what would I be to her then? I would be the life-sucking monster, just like the one I had spawned, and she would hate me for it. No, I thought. We could do it. We could get it out and still save her human, and life would extend before her, human life, with all its endless options. I would give her that chance, that future, with Jacob. She had had the choice before, and had chosen me. I would give her a second chance to change her mind. My life was forfeit now, either way. If she wants a child, that's what she gets, I said. I won't rescind. Jacob was doubtful, confused, and angry. I should just kill him now, he thought. Not now, I whispered. Not yet. Right or wrong, it will destroy her, the moment Bella's heart stops beating. I saw a vision of Bella's body, pale, heart still warm, and the light slowly fading from her skin, and a cold, dark knot formed inside me. I will be begging for you to kill me. You won't have to beg long, Jacob snarled. I almost smiled. Yes, I was sure I could rely on Jacob for that.
Edward,
called Alice in my head.
Bella's getting more and more upset. Please come back.
Okay, time to finalize things. I'm very much counting on that, I told Jacob. Then we have a deal, Jacob said. I nodded and held out my hand. He gritted his teeth and took it. We have a deal, I agreed, and sealed my death with a handshake. I turned back toward the house as Jacob followed me. My footsteps were taking me swiftly back to Bella, and I sensed, as always, the desperate pull to be close to her. Even so, I had a sickening sensation that a small part of me was now emotionless and hollow, as though I had left a piece of myself, broken and lifeless, back at my conversation with Jacob. The space it used to inhabit was now empty, devoid of emotion, of hope, of the power to exist. And it was not alone. I realized that these were the small parts of me that Bella had already been ripped away from, each time she cried out in pain, each time I knew I would not be able to save her, each time death, hovering, reminded me I was losing her. With cold clarity, I remembered what it felt like when I had left Bella, the retching, tearing emptiness that had consumed me as I stepped away from her in the forest, the black void of having lost her. And then, when I had thought she had died, I drew in a sharp breath through my gritted teeth. I could only pray that Jacob would be true to his word when that time came. We entered the house, and I realized as soon as I saw her face that I would have to delve into that small part of myself, the empty part that had already lost her, if I was going to get through this. My true emotions could play no part in this, but would have to stay chained up, screaming in tortured protest in the rest of my mind, because if I let those emotions free, I would have to gather Bella into my arms, press her to my chest, and scream at Jacob that she was mine, always, and that he could never touch her, never have her. And I couldn't do that, because I had to give her this chance, this choice. I strode up to my family, ignoring their silent questions. We're going to let Jacob and Bella speak privately, I said, my voice sounding as hollow as I felt.
Over my pile of ashes,
Rosalie growled at me.
What the hell are you pulling, Edward?
She thought.
I know you don't want her alone with that dog, so what's your real motive?
I ignored her. I looked at Bella, trying to keep emotion off my face. Bella, I said in an even voice, Jacob wants to talk to you. Are you afraid to be alone with him? Bella looked at me, confused, as if the thought of being worried about being alone with Jacob had never occurred to her. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, like the twisting of a knife. It was only me she could not be alone with. Bella looked at Rosalie.
Rose, it's fine. Jake's not going to hurt us. Go with Edward. It might be a trick,
Rosalie said in a soft, warning voice, looking from Bella to Jacob to me, trying to decipher what was going on.
I don't see how,
said Bella. Carlyle and I will always be in your sight, Rosalie, I snapped, struggling to keep a low voice as my facade began to crack. We're the ones she's afraid of. And that's how you want it to be, Rosalie, isn't it? I thought bitterly. Bella's eyes filled with tears.
No,
she whispered.
No, Edward, I'm not.
Oh, Bella. I shook my head, forcing my lips into something like a smile. I didn't mean it that way, Bella. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. She blinked her eyes, and the teardrops soaked her lashes, glimmering like diamonds. I wanted to reach out and brush them away. I had to get out of here. Everyone, I said, gesturing toward the door. Please. I tried to keep pleading out of my voice, but I met Carlyle's eyes, asking him to trust me. The others were frozen, waiting now to see what Carlyle would do. Okay, Edward, thought Carlyle hesitantly. Of course, we'll go. He went out the door, and the others followed, except for Rosalie. Emmett hovered just outside the door, waiting. Rosalie stood, hesitant. She absolutely loathed leaving Bella at all, especially with Jacob, but she was also worried about alienating Bella by outright disagreeing with her.
Rose,
Bella said,
I want you to go.
Rosalie made up her mind.
You first,
she thought, inclining her head swiftly toward the door. I turned and left. She followed behind after, giving Jacob a long look. We all left in silence, circling around the house to the backyard. No one spoke as we positioned ourselves, standing apart. Rosalie and I stood facing each other, about 15 feet apart. Emmett stood by the river, facing away. Jasper stood at the river too, several feet away from him, his eyes on me, Alice by his side. Carlyle and Esme stood further down the river, grasping hands and speaking softly together, worried about me. I wanted to give Bella privacy for this conversation. I knew she would not want me listening to words or thoughts when she was alone with Jacob. I tried to drown out their conversation, concentrating on the rush of water in the river, the calliope of bird noises from the forest. It was hard, though, to concentrate on anything but Rosalie's screaming, suspicious thoughts. She was furious, standing with her arms crossed, fists clenched, anger and wariness in her eyes. She hated leaving Bella unattended, and she could not understand what I thought I might gain by bringing Jacob into the situation. It occurred to me then that both Rosalie and I had never been this far away from Bella, together, since we had gotten home from the airport. I considered this, shifting slightly. Forget about it, Edward, Emmett said calmly, without turning his head from the river. I had not heard my name in his thoughts, but apparently he had been more aware of me than I realized. He was thinking now that I might take this opportunity to make a move on Rosalie. I felt a burst of irritation with him. I was so sick of him backing Rosalie, although of course I understood, and I really had no intention of getting into a pointless struggle with Rosalie. I was just considering it. Suddenly, Jasper's head snapped around toward the house. He's angry, Edward, he thought quickly. I focused in on Jacob as a low growl emanated from the house. Rosalie turned and started to move. Jasper and Emmett ran up the slope behind her. I took 2 long strides after Rosalie and gripped her arm. No, I snapped. She shook me off. He's angry, but not dangerous. She hissed at me, but stopped, arms crossed, several feet from the house. Emmett and Jasper right behind us. Inside, Jacob was infuriated. If you think that imprinting could ever make sense of this insanity, he spat the words out at Bella. Do you really think that just because I might someday imprint on some stranger, it would make this right? He snapped, pointing at her stomach. Tell me what the point was then, Bella. What was the point of me loving you? What was the point of you loving him? When you die, how is that ever right again? What was the point of all the pain? Mine, yours, his. You'll kill him too. Not that I care about that. Jacob paused and sucked in a breath. My family was frozen, entranced, listening. So what was the point of our twisted love story in the end? If there is any sense, please show me, Bella, because I can't see it.
I don't know yet, Jake,
Bella sighed.
But I just feel that it's all going somewhere good. Hard to see as it is now. I guess you could call it faith.
You're dying for nothing, Bella, Jacob almost shouted. Nothing. Rosalie flinched, lurching toward the house, her body stiff with fury. I grabbed her arm again. She grasped my wrist and viciously twisted off my hand. Emmett's arm shot out, and I shoved it away, but giving me a hard look, he placed it on Rosalie's shoulder. "Let them talk, Rose," he whispered. I was a little surprised he had stepped in on my side of things, and the shock must have shown on my face when he looked at me. "Damn you, Edward," he thought. "I don't want her to die either." I could feel the weight of it on him, of our divided loyalties, and I felt a sudden slice of pain at our splintered relationship.
"I'm not going to die,"
Bella said, in a determined, angry voice.
"I will keep my heart beating. I'm strong enough for that."
"That's a load of crap, Bella. You've been trying to keep up with the supernatural for too long. No normal person can do it. You're not strong enough." He took her face in his hands, gently cradling it. A piece of me seethed at his touching her skin. I pulled myself away, irritated we were all listening. "Enough," I hissed at my family, motioning that we should all go back to the river bank. We moved swiftly, resuming our former tense poses. Faith. How could Bella see the existence of faith in all this? And yet, inexplicably, she did. Faith that what was inside her was not a monster. Faith that she could withstand the pain. Faith that I could save her with my venom in the end. So much faith, and so much to be lost and ruined in its wake. I tried to let my mind loose again, ignoring the words between them, but Bella suddenly gasped in pain. Everyone's head whipped around towards the house, and then quickly realized it was pain from the fetus. Carlyle moved a few steps toward the house, concern on his face. We waited as her breathing and heartbeat normalized, and then the others turned away, losing the strands of the conversation inside again to their own thoughts. But not me. Jacob had seen the bruises on her stomach, and his horror and pain echoed in the pit of my stomach. But also, I had sensed a change in the tenor of his thoughts. The marks on her stomach had made the threat suddenly, grotesquely real for Jacob, and desperation flowed thickly through his thoughts now. He would ask her. I gave up the pretense of not listening, concentrating now, giving myself over to her angel's face through his eyes, still flushed from the fading pain. "Bella," he said, his voice different, strained. "Bella, don't do this."
"Jake,"
Bella protested. "What if it wasn't a one-shot deal? What if it wasn't all for nothing?" Jacob argued now, reasoning, trying. "Then you could start over. This didn't work out. Try again." Bella was confused.
"And what difference would it make? I'm sure any baby—"
"Yes," Jacob snapped. "Any kid of his would be the same." Bella looked even more confused. "There's no point," Jacob thought. "I will never be able to save her from herself. I've never been able to do that."
"You think I should kill my baby and replace it with some generic substitute?"
Bella was angry now.
"Why would I want to have a stranger's baby?"
"I didn't mean that," mumbled Jacob. "Not a stranger."
"Then what are you saying?"
Bella said. She didn't understand, and Jacob backed off now, unable to get the words out. I waited, unsure.
"Not a stranger,"
Bella suddenly murmured.
"What exactly did Edward say to you?"
"Nothing," said Jacob, too quickly. "He just thought you might listen to me."
"Not that. About trying again."
"Nothing," Jacob said quietly, the rejection already starting to painfully filter into his heart. He looked down, tearing his and my eyes from her face. There was a long pause. "Look up, damn you," I thought, desperate to see the expression on her face.
"Wow,"
Bella whispered.
"He really would do anything, wouldn't he?"
She understood. Jacob was looking at her again, and her eyes were calm, a small smile playing on her face. "She knows what I'm offering, and she isn't going to think twice about it," Jacob thought, unsurprised, but still stung. I knew that she wouldn't. Refused. She had refused, of course. I felt it then, flowing through me, a cool feeling of release spreading through my limbs. I named the feeling for what it was, relief. I gritted my teeth, disgusted with myself. Was I so unspeakably selfish that I was relieved that Bella would not agree to have a child with Jacob? Was I happier to accept the risk of death just to keep her to myself? "But it's always been that way, hasn't it?" a small voice said in my head. You've always risked her life to have her with you. No, I would not give up on the idea yet. Even if she had refused this time, I would not give up on her. I looked at the river again. The rapids were high and rough, an endless cascade of water coursing along the riverbed, some of it banding together to form the main current, with splintering currents swirling and eddying in a kaleidoscope of directions, smashing into the bank and causing individual drops to arc through the air. Seeming chaos, and yet a multitude of things. The curve and placement of rocks, the shifting of the sand, the wind and the rain, all of these things helped determine the ultimate path of the water as it flowed. A million different decisions by Bella and I, small and large, decisions of the heart and the mind, had led us here, to this point, random and unexpected, and yet also determined. I heard Jacob's thoughts begin to move away, and I realized he had silently left the room. Damn, he could be quiet when he wanted. I thought I'd give Bella a couple of minutes alone. As I waited impatiently, I realized that none of the rest of my family had noticed Jacob's departure. Bella was all alone, and I was the only one who realized. I froze, contemplating the opportunity suddenly handed to me. I kept my face blank as I considered. I might get a few moments alone, away from Rosalie's poisonous presence. Was there anything I could do with those moments to help her? The time had long since passed that I might consider taking Bella away. Maybe I could encourage her to consider Jacob's offer. I felt the tightening right away in my chest and throat. I could hardly bear to see his hands on her face. Could I really speak the words out loud that would ask her to do so much more with him? Then suddenly another path occurred to me, something I had nearly forgotten in the events of Jacob's visit. Rosalie still had her eyes intent on me, tense to move. I casually moved my head around, looking at the sky, then the river, glancing at the side slightly to catch Jasper's eye. He was still staring intently at me, and I held his eye for a moment. Did he understand? He did. "I'll try to do my best, Edward," he thought. Alice blinked, surprise crossing her features as she saw a vision of our backyard, everyone still there except me. She eyed me curiously. I waited. Slowly, so subtle that it would be impossible to notice unless you were looking for it, I felt the calm start to creep over me. I focused my resolve, my anxiety, to keep the calm from washing up and pulling me under. I moved my eyes again, so I could watch both Rosalie and Emmett. As the calm slowly built intensity, Rosalie's arms uncrossed and fell to her sides, her hands unclenched from fists. Emmett's shoulders relaxed, and he sighed contently. Finally, a peaceful look came over Rose's face, and as if she couldn't help it any longer, her eyes finally left me, and she turned her head to look at Emmett. I moved. I flew with silence and speed that surprised even me. In a second, I was at Bella's side, kneeling next to her. She started, and her eyes opened wide at my sudden appearance. I grasped her hand in mine. "Bella," I said urgently, "please, please let Carlyle help you. Let him try the IV." She watched me, shocked. "Please trust me. Carlyle loves you. He would never hurt you. He won't do anything you don't want. Don't listen to Rosalie. Please, please do this for me. For me." The words tumbled out of me, the vital seconds alone with her spinning away quickly, and suddenly Rose was there, hands gripping the couch, snarling loudly. I continued to hold Bella's hand, looking into her eyes. Carlyle and the others appeared quickly. There was a long moment of silence, and Bella looked slowly around the room, looking first at Rosalie, then Carlyle, then back to me. She sighed.
"Okay, Carlyle," she said quietly, eyes holding mine. "Bring on the needles."